Welcome to maybe my most special episode of Mindset Makeovers podcast. I am joined today by none other than Steve Moxon, my partner in life, my baby daddy, my husband, as we eloped in Vegas at the beginning of 2020, and ultimately a man that I have so much love and respect for in this life. So, welcome, Steve.
Thank you. I just want to say, Lena comes into the room and says, I want to get you on one time. And I said, let's do it now. I hear Lena from the other room quite often. And it was like one of those moments where, like, I want what she's having. Like, I hear you talk, and I always yell out at the end, you're fucking amazing. You're awesome. And it's just this like ingesting now, but I'm dead serious. So I wanted to jump on board to have what you're having. I want some of your energy. I love it.
I love you. I appreciate you. And it's been a really interesting thing being witnessed by Steve in the unfolding of everything that I'm kind of creating or that I'm trying to create. Right. I'm on the uphill. Let's not pretend I've arrived anywhere yet. I'm making my way up. But, Steve really sees what goes on all the time, all the time. The good days, the bad days, the in between, the days that I'm confused and just lying on the couch and binging Kardashians because I've convinced myself that I know nothing. And also the days that I'm celebrating progress and I'm celebrating the expression of purpose. And so he knows me better than anyone. And in saying that, I feel like I know him really well and I know how much value he can bring to a conversation that, very much belongs on this podcast. So my dear husband was a two-time world champion kickboxer. And I know that's very easy to kind of say, right? We can declare that we're champions in anything within this life, but legitimately this man next to me is a world-class fighter, two-time world champion. And he's very humble about that. I have no chill factor about it. I just am in awe of his life, who he has been. Can you, in like 2 minutes, sum up, just give some context to the height of your career,
Yeah.
please?
All right. So there's a difference between somebody who's had a couple of fights here and there and somebody who fights and that's their job. I was fortunate enough to make it my job. It was how I made a living. I made a great living. I wish there was more to it. I sometimes reflect now on Facebook memories where it was from 2013, 14, 15, 16, but all in that same weekend each year. I've traveled to Greece, traveled to Paris, traveled to, all over America, um,
China.
China many, many, many times. So I was quite lucky enough to make fighting my job, fighting 8 times a year, traveling international, 5 out of those 8 fights every year, stuff like that. So ranked number one in Australia. My best was number 11 in the world, fighting kickboxing, fighting the biggest badasses all over the world. It was fun. It was fun.
Two things that I want to kind of bring forward into this conversation. So often we're kind of told and shown that we need to have a really clear vision for ourselves, that our success depends on us activating our desires, getting really clear around who we are to be and what we want for ourselves, staying focused. You get the vibe, right? Steve's story presents a different perspective. And I always value Steve's opinion when it comes to how we make things happen for ourselves, because Steve's life experience and his career in particular reflects a different way of being, one that invites ease, one that allows trust, one that kind of really suspends the idea that we have to know exactly where we're going before we get started. And one that really highlights that the way reveals itself on the way. Did you want to speak to just your perspective, not even just through your fight career, but just your perspective in life, that you can just flow with life and move with life and be guided rather than
Yeah.
force your way towards a fixed target?
Sometimes a lot of people throughout my life have seen that as a negative, where they're like thinking I'm not taking things seriously or that I'm just too cruisy. But I'm always a big one on taking opportunities when they're there. And I'm very big on it's not happening until it's happening. So there's no use in getting overly stressed about something until it's even happening. Gonna fight someone, cool, let's fight. It's not on until the bell goes and you're in the ring. So why would I spend weeks and weeks before thinking about what if I lose, what if I get hurt, what if I go for this job interview, what if I don't get it, what if? So people are stressing too much about things that aren't even happening yet, might not even happen. So I'm a big believer in taking the opportunities and go with the flow, because at the end of the day, if you don't get the job or if something doesn't happen, there's always another avenue to get there, or there's always another job to do, something else to do instead of. I just don't stress. I stress over little things, as you know. I just don't stress over the big things where, like, some things are out of our control. And often when people are trying to find a way of controlling everything, then everything just falls to shit. So I love just letting things just find their path. And if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Um, I flew all the way to China once, landed, somebody standing there with my name on a sign, a husband and wife, jumped in the car. It was like a 3-hour trip to the hotel in some province somewhere. Oh no, it was in Shaolin, the village of Shaolin. The phone rings, the show is being cancelled, no more fight. You know what I mean? So, like, do I get upset or do I just go, got a week? I got a little bit of money. They gave me a bit of money. I've got a week in China. So I didn't stress over things that are out of my control.
What I've learned from Steve, he's been a masterclass in, truly, is being present, being in the moment, and bringing radical acceptance to what is arising in the moment. So his life has highlighted to me there is actually no sense in getting nervous or stressing or anticipating or predicting what might be. And only need to best prepare yourself to be ready and available for the opportunity as it arises. And so spending any of our precious energy, resourcefulness, time, money, effort on focusing on what might go wrong is just like, when you say it like that, of course it's so obvious, why would I do that? But people are spending so much time anticipating things happening that causes so much kind of stress and inflammation and worry within their system and within their life, where they could just be doing a stone cold Steve Moxon and kicking back, relaxing, enjoying themselves.
It comes back to the fighting. The second you think that you might lose, you're going to lose. You're going to talk your way out of it. The second you start questioning everything in your surroundings, you're just not going to win. At the end of the day, we want to win. No matter what it is, want to win. So that's why I don't stress over the things that just are not in my control anyway. But it is in my control because I've put myself in that position. So once you put yourself in that position, it's like fight or flight. I always choose to fight. So I've done all the hard work to get myself to this position. Why would I run away now?
Steve gets asked a lot, like, are you nervous about things, or were you nervous? And the answer is always no. And then a following question sometimes is like, how do you think positively about something that, might make you nervous? Like, how do you think positively about these big challenges? And what I've observed in Steve is actually like manifestation principles 101. The actual answer is he doesn't try and think positively about it. He doesn't force himself to think positively about it. More often than not, he's not thinking about it. And that is manifestation 101. If you don't naturally and easily have a satisfying thought about the thing that you're trying to create or that you're working towards, you're better off not thinking about it at all. Right? And so that is simple, but there's so much genius in that. Forcing yourself to think positively about something, stretching, reaching for a more positive thought about something that's actually just activating a sense of kind of fear, nervousness, whatever inside of you, is only going to perpetuate that. You feel scared, you feel overwhelmed, you feel like an imposter. So you're actually better off distracting yourself in that moment till you can come to a more neutral place where reaching for a satisfying thought feels easy, feels natural, feels like the next best thing to do.
I would always think about the feeling afterwards. So anything, again, I'm going to keep mentioning fighting. That's
your point of reference, babe. Yeah.
Anything can happen. I can train. I can have the best six-pack ever. I can look amazing and like do all the smash the bag, smash the pads. But I go into that ring and 2 seconds later the guy hits me and then I'm wobbled or I get dropped. All that shit is out the window. So you got to like tap into some other reserve that you've got. So at the end of the day, it's a fight. So it doesn't matter how you look. It's not a beauty contest.
You were saying you think about the feeling after.
I think about the feeling after. So you can't think about he's going to do this and I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. Never happens. I always love to think about the positive, the feeling after. The referee's got my hand up. I'm walking home with the trophy in my hand or the belt around me. That's pretty much the feeling. And that's the fun part about it.
And I think that applies to so many things in life. So many of us, if we have conflict or challenge with somebody, we might sit and anticipate how the conversation's going to go. We try and script it. We think, oh, if they say this, what am I going to say? And it never goes that way. And we've spent all this time activating all sorts of tension and emotion within our body that's only going to cause us harm and, is presenting problems that we're going to have to address in future. We're kind of creating problems for
That's right.
ourselves in real time. So I guess this conversation is really about highlighting how can I just offer myself more ease, that is actually going to serve me long term, that's actually going to make me more powerful in the pursuit of the things that I want. So my husband just offers me a beautiful reference point for understanding that life is always going to give us the opportunities that are meant for us. And to actually best prepare for ourselves, we need to not be laser focused. We actually need to ask of ourselves, how open am I to receiving? How at ease can I be? How in tune with myself and who I actually am at the base of my being can I be? So that when those opportunities present themselves to me, I am who I'm intended to be, and I can just take them with ease. So much of Steve's success in his career came through his capacity to say yes to certain fights and certain opponents that most people said like fuck no, because they were so in tune to the potential of loss, or they were so afraid of being put on show against these big names. And I suppose because that was never kind of something that you were sitting into or feeling into, and that you didn't have this like mountaintop that you were trying to achieve, you didn't have some kind of like idea of who you were going to be or what your record was going to be, right?
No,
Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it's a strange one, and some people say it's easy for you to say, but I've had so many fights, and then you're bound to lose. It's a part of the sport as well. But I never started thinking that I wanted to be a world champion. I never started thinking I want to travel the world and fight all these amazing top guys that are still the top guys going around. Um, I was just I was putting myself in those positions because I must admit, it doesn't just happen. It doesn't look like they just come knocking on my door. I put myself out there, but I put myself out there in the right way. I'm not like what you see on TV and talk, shoot, and swear. But I was respectful. I was good at what I did. I was entertaining. So there's more to fighting than fighting.
More than that, I just want to highlight he moved from where he was living into a different city to make himself available for the opportunities. There was a lot of sacrifice.
A lot of sacrifice, 100%. A lot of sacrifice. I could have easily just done a full-time job and then just made my money, but I enjoyed what I was doing, and it opened up more fun opportunities. I know you want to talk about it. I'm going to start it off. I didn't want to identify my life as a fighter always.
Can I do want to talk on that, but let me just jump in, because one final point that I want to make really clear is that I think that your success unfolded because you weren't so kind of like fixated on who you had to be. So you just allowed the opportunities to kind of co-create with you. Yeah. And I see this getting in the way of a lot of people, where we have an aspiration or a dream for ourselves, but the gap between who we are now or where we are and where we want to get to just intimidates the shit out of us. So we don't make any next move. I've witnessed it within myself recently. I've had some doors open up for me, some opportunities made available for me, and all of a sudden this desire in me to do something like be a keynote speaker or deliver my big TED talk kind of gets activated within me. And I did this thing last week where I was speaking to a few people who were talking to me about opportunities, about being keynote speakers. And I said, I don't even know how I would do that. And so I sat in front of Google, as we always do when we're at a loss, right? Big mistake. Typed in Keynote Speakers Australia, saw a website of a management company, and saw all the big names that they manage that are already keynote speakers. And in that moment, I felt so small. I felt so stupid. I let my dream make me feel like such an imposter. And I felt myself shrink. I felt myself try and dilute that goal immediately, because who I am here in my humble little home, in my own little space, and the big stages that I actually desire for myself seems like a long way away. And so it would have been really easy for me in that moment to be like, no, fuck this.
But those big names, where did they start?
Right. And the question that I actually asked myself is, okay, you don't know how you're going to find yourself side of stage, ready to walk on and grab the microphone yet. Okay. Exactly. But are there opportunities in your local area? Could the next step just be enough for now? Could you do more of what you're already doing? Could you The answer was yes. And so, why I share this is that I think Steve's success unfolded and unfolded so quickly because he didn't concern himself with worrying too much about where his career was taking him or who he was trying to be or where it was going to lead him. It was just like, what's the next fight and what's the next fight and what's the next fight, right?
100%. And as my career got bigger and bigger, so to speak, it was if I lost, cool, I wasn't injured, moved on to the next one. If I was still walking, I was good to go, and I never pulled out, and I'd never pulled out of a fight, and I'd always be there to put on a show.
So much. I mean, I could talk to you for 5 hours, right? Because that's a relationship with failure that you established, and like failure didn't exist for you, right?
Yeah, there's it's a strange thing because fighting in front of 10,000 people in the O2 arena, and you lose a fight, just trying to brag and drop names and. You know what I mean, against the number one guy from the UK, hey, Jordan Watson.
No one listening to this podcast.
But when you lose and you go, all right, on to the next one. Or you can like sit and cry about it for days and days and days. It's a strange situation. If you lose and don't get injured, especially in fighting, it's all good. You can go on to the next one and take the next opportunity. Go back to that drawing board, blah, 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 learn, whatever it is. People say, oh, no, it's not losing, it's learning, and just shut up, just get on with it and get on to the next one because we don't dwell. I don't want to dwell on that. I've lost, cool, let's get on to the next one.
I know in the ring you've often spoken about how you have to be willing to look silly, like of all the punches that you're going to throw in a fight, sometimes you're going to miss and you're going to overextend and you're going to kind of stumble, and if you stop and you let yourself feel silly for overreaching or missing or whatever, you're going to get hit. The faster you can gather yourself and compose yourself and line up your next shot, the better chance you have at winning. I think of this often when I'm looking for opportunities for myself. How quickly will I allow myself to just take the shot, trusting that I'm going to recover really quickly? And there's nothing to fear if I approach it like that. I'm going to send the email, I'm going to ask the question, I'm going to look for the opportunity. And even if there's a no, I've decided within myself, I'm not going to sulk about it. I'm going to stand up and go for the next opportunity. There is no loss. There's just like, one shot closer to getting that knockout in whatever way I'm trying to achieve the knockout, It's been really strengthening. It's been really affirming. And I think it's really helped me just quantum leap things within my businesses and within my career and what I'm trying to do for myself. Because when you have that example of someone who's literally willing to physically take a hit and physically be seen, falling down, stumbling, all of the things, you realize like the story I'm telling myself about what feels dangerous and scary for me right now is complete bullshit. Like, what's the actual worst that happens to me if I send an email and it's not responded to or I get a no? Like, am I actually in danger of anything bad happening? No. So why am I letting this feel like I'm in danger right now, that this is scary? I'm allowing my brain to cultivate a sense of fear when really there is no danger. There is nothing to be scared of, just a story that I'm telling myself. So if I can tell myself a better story, one of me being just kind of, I don't know, unbeatable in a way. Yeah.
Do you think that people are more scared of their own feelings, what other people are going to feel about them, what other people are going to say about them, like taking an opportunity or sending an email or having a fight?
It's all a hallucination of their own because you never actually know what somebody's thinking, what they're going to say, how they're relating to you, what meaning they're making. So
but that's the thing. So like,
my point is, even if you are worried about what they're going to say or do, that's all your own kind of creation anyway. It's all just reflective of how you feel about yourself and how you feel about the world.
Like, but not about like that interview or whatever, but I mean like your friends or your peers or the people around you. Are people worried about the opinions of others or worried about the result of what they're going to do?
The opinion of others is what keeps people small most of the time.
That's what I'm thinking.
Especially in this work that I'm
doing,
right?
In fighting.
I think in any, yes, definitely.
Because they would worried about looking like an idiot or losing or doing the wrong thing. But I've got the balls to do it, and you don't.
Yes,
I think you got the balls to do it, and that person who's criticizing possibly doesn't.
I think we all fear, especially when we try something new or there's a new expression or we learn something new about ourselves and we kind of feel like, okay, this is something that I want to share. This is something that I want to make the most of. We fear that people that have known us before this experience of self are going to look to what we're sharing and say like, since when?
You've changed.
Who does she think she is?
Yeah, gotcha.
Right?
Yeah, right.
And I think that's the thing that holds us back the most. And I actually have a story about this. There's one friend in particular. who she's on Instagram regularly. And every time I go to share something about somatic activated healing or the work that I'm doing, she actually pops into my mind. And I actually have this quick moment where I visualize her seeing the post and her being like, the story I tell myself is like, this chick, what is she doing? Like, she looks ridiculous. Since when? Right. And I feel that hesitation, but I'm so in devotion to the understanding of my purpose that I decide that I'm always going to like overcome that hesitation. And I kind of think, well, I'm not going to be held back by somebody else's outdated perception of me and who I get to be, right? Why I share this is most recently I shared something that was just completely audacious, true expression of where I'm at within myself and within my work. And she was the first person to comment underneath it and say, I'm so proud of you. I love seeing you do this. So I had been sitting there telling myself this story that she was looking at my content going, what a fucking weirdo, when that was never actually happening. And so I share this because so much of the way that we hold ourselves back through the perception of the way we think people are looking at us and relating to us, first of all, is kind of unnecessary in our decision making and our action taking, but also it's highly likely that we're getting it wrong a lot of the time, you know?
Yeah.
The next part of this conversation that I kind of want to move to quite quickly, because I have a waxing appointment to get to, is the fact that, you know, we talk about your fight career because it was such an exciting, expansive, explosive decade of your life. But now as a husband and a father of two and a man in his mid-30s, Steve's birthday last week, happy birthday, happy 35th. That identity kind of is getting outdated for you now.
Yeah.
Right. And so we use these point of references and these stories, but you, as the Steve Moxon that I know and love now, hasn't got into the ring for years now, and likely will never get into the ring again. And so I wanted you to speak on what it's like to be somebody who has such a clear chapter in their life that has seen them in high esteem, that has, you know, given them a lot of praise, a lot of notoriety, so much of the respect that you have within our community and even just within, you know, the world as we move through, is based on an identity that you kind of like outgrowing and no longer relate to day by day by day. And I know that you're handling that really well. I would just love you to speak on that, because I think for so many of us, we fear really exploring who we are to be because we get afraid that the best of us maybe has been kind of already experienced, and maybe we're holding on to parts of our identity that kind of no longer fit into our lives, but we're scared to let shit go.
Oh, that's not even me as a professional. That's a lot of men in general, a lot of people in general, but a lot of men. I see it a lot. I feel like, well, the last time I was in the ring was mid-2019. And even after that, I was like, middleweight world champion, middleweight world champion. Then only recently I've started saying, former middleweight world champion. And I'm like, and cool, because I'm older and, you know, these young guys, they're coming up and that's for them to do now. But on a personal level, I'm cool with it because it's just a chapter of my life. I want to now be known for my great coaching, the cool things that I build, and it's epic. Like being a father, being a great husband, the things that every man should strive to be anyway. I love being able to identify as that. I don't know, the fight situations that I always said I had no ego, because that's where, if you have such an ego, losing is where people end it. They go, holy shit, I have an ego. Like, I can't handle losing. I could handle losing. I could handle winning. I could handle being in front of the big crowds. I could handle the pressure. I love the pressure. I actually love that part of fighting, is that pressure and the whole world on your shoulders. I actually enjoyed it. I don't miss it. People say, do you miss fighting? I don't miss the pressure. I don't miss the preparation. It's a weird situation. I loved it, but don't miss it. I don't miss identifying as a professional fighter. I don't miss that at all, because it's just a chapter. I do everything until I'm bored of it.
Okay, here's my next question. Is there a frustration, though, that you're happy to kind of let that go, but every single person that we come into contact with relates to you as Stone Cold Steve Moxon? Like, you'll sit down to dinner with people and they'll ask you about your fight record, or they obnoxiously say to you, oh, wow, you've put on weight. Like,
yeah, I know. As if I was to say it to them.
Yeah.
That people feel like it's fine to say it to me.
Comment on your weight.
Cool. I'm also, 8 years older and
Yeah, not
You know, I
fighting.
don't train and don't have to lose weight for fights.
So I'm wondering, is there a frustration that you experience that people still relate to you as the 25-year-old version of you, not the 35-year-old?
Yeah.
And it's almost like my perception is, tell me how it feels for you, they're not even interested in getting to know the you that's in front of them.
No, they like seeing that almost like I've failed, but I'm also 10 years older, and like it's a weird situation.
Is that how you perceive it?
Yeah, I feel like people like enjoy seeing that you're not as good as what you were. I'm like, listen, I'm a grown ass man who's
right.
2 kids and 2 marriages. I don't need to worry about my fight career. That was 10 years ago.
What's that movie?
I feel that.
Is it Ricky? What's his name? You know the movie I'm talking about? He was the wrestler. Mickey Rourke?
Yeah.
Mickey? Is it Mickey? Is that who I'm talking about?
Mickey.
Who is it?
Mickey, yes,
Mickey Mouse? Anyway, there is this like whole kind of like fascination and interest in finding out what happens to people after they're at the peak of their success.
Yeah.
And is that the way that you perceive it? That people are almost like sitting there and being like, oh, I get to see you overweight and without the belt.
Correct.
And, yeah, right.
Everyone feels fine to make a comment about it. But then it's just, and then it goes both ways. I got my shoulder. I'm getting more injured now in my old age. Checked out my shoulder at the sports physician, and I went for my second appointment here. So I must admit, I googled you, and holy shit, I couldn't believe that. It's amazing because they might meet me now and think, oh, is he a professional fighter? You know what I mean? And they go, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's some people's own egos and immaturity when they mention stuff like, oh, you put on weight or whatever. Own insecurities, because I could still kick their ass.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. So that I think it's their own insecurities to point something out.
Yes.
And I see that a lot in men of all ages.
Do you feel like you have to work harder for people to kind of see you and receive you as enough now? Like, do you feel like...
Once again, I have no egos.
You don't care.
I'd rather tell them to go get fucked. Doesn't worry me because I don't see that. I don't like someone who doesn't show me respect. Why would I show back? And you know me damn well, and I would physically say that to someone.
Yes,
I don't care.
Yes.
But the people around my circle, my tight little circle, I love it. I love our community. I love what we've built. And if they don't fit in our circle, I'm more than happy to tell them to get out of our circle.
Quite literally.
Literally.
I bring this to this podcast because what I see in so many of the women that I work with is that they hold themselves accountable to standards or decisions or ways of being or parts of their identity that they have claimed and decided for themselves a decade, sometimes maybe longer, right? The way that we relate to our bodies is a prime example of this. There are women who are committed to maintaining a certain weight. And when I really dig and ask them, like, when did you decide that for yourself? For some of them, it was like they were like 18 years old where they read in some magazine somewhere that this was the most appropriate weight to be for your height. And that's kind of, they decided like, that's the goal forevermore.
Yeah.
And they've never allowed themselves to decide like, what could I be outside of this like decision that I've made for myself?
Yeah.
When is it time to kind of reinvent myself in a way that allows me to kind of just experience myself and my life in a new way? And so I bring you on as an example of you can be like celebrated in front of the world in one way and it can end and you can feel like life is just beginning for you. You don't have to cling on to the things that have been celebrated by others.
Yeah.
And feel like you've got nothing to experience or nothing to offer. I ask you often, do you miss it? I ask you often, like, are you bored now? My fear sometimes is like our life, as beautiful and humble and simple as it is, and that's why we love it. I often question, like, is this boring for you? You know?
No, it's not boring at all. I'm past that now. Like it's just, I was past that in my last couple of fights. Yeah, as you know, like
party was over.
The party was over, and you try your hardest. And a lot of fighters get into that. You know, they want to identify something, so they keep on fighting, just keep taking every opportunity. I could have kept fighting if I was happy to fight for a couple of $1,000 and a Macca's voucher, but I wasn't. I wanted to. I had too much integrity. I've said no to fighting certain opponents because I'm like, they're not even good enough to be in the ring with me. Like I've said no because I had too much integrity. It's not about my record. I want to fight the best.
And your values changed, right? Like you didn't want to be away from family anymore. You had your kids that you wanted to be present for.
100%. You know, we run the gym together. It's not like I can just take off whenever and say, oh, I'll catch you. And this is, you know, that's selfish. That part is you have to be selfish to be a fighter. And having that understandable circle around you who understands that you have to travel or do things is great. If you have it, I don't think I really had it. In my 20s,
me.
not
God,
with you.
wasn't me.
In my 20s.
Let's be clear.
No, not with you. So that's the thing. So
yeah.
I can't blame you then. If you come into my life earlier, I could have went longer.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. So look, that's the thing. And so those parts of anyone's life changes, and I just feel that I like evolving. Like I said, I like building shit and having fun. And before Kinder this morning, taking Tyson for a ride on his bike. That's what I love about life.
Yeah, it's allowing ourselves to really define what success means for us and our family.
Yeah.
Right. Like we feel super successful because we get Monday mornings at home together with each other. Right. Like that to us is everything. When we can be doing nothing together, that's everything to us. And so I think when you get to redefine for yourself what it means to be satisfied and to feel like you've activated a level of success that you can enjoy genuinely, not because it looks good to anybody else, but because it feels good to you from the inside out, right?
Saying yes to opportunities and doing everything, giving it 100% until you're bored of it. Don't flog a dead horse. Once you're done with it, go, cool, I'm done. But being able to go, yep, I'm going to move on to the next project. I'm all about my projects and whatever. Fighting was just a project. It's a 14-year project. It was fun.
Yeah.
Did it until I was like, yep, and I got out unscathed. Still got my wits about me. I'm not injured. I didn't have any time off whilst fighting. Some people fight once at the start of the year and they're injured for the rest of the year. Like a football player or something. It's like you get injured and you're out for the whole season. Fighting is pretty much all year round, and I was able to do it all year round.
Yeah, you were graced. You were blessed. Your career was kind of, an exception.
Yeah.
Truly. Anyway, thank you so much for your time today and your idiot genius ways, as I call them. Steve always inspires me. I always think of Steve walking out to the ring, fighting in front of 10,000, 20,000 people when I have to do the most simple things in life that feel challenging. And I think, if you can take that kind of fighter mentality sometimes and just put on your walkout music, hype yourself up, tell yourself for the most part that the big thing that's stopping you and scaring you and holding you back isn't actually going to take you that long. For the most part, the things that we need to action to build the momentum that we want within our lives or witness ourselves in the power of doing something only takes a few moments. And so if you can kind of empower yourself to bust through the resistance and the hesitation like a badass, walk up to that laptop, slam out the email, pick up the phone. I genuinely do. I like hype myself up. I'm like, come on, you can do this thing. You can press record. You can ask the question. You can whatever it is, and know that life will not knock you down so long as you decide that you're gonna have fun with it all, right? You're just gonna have fun and win, loss, draw, whatever it is, whatever the outcome of the day, if you can kind of know that, hey, at least I was in.
Having the balls to do whatever it is in the first place is the key.
Yeah.
Because you talk yourself out of it and then you're done.
And you're done. And you're in perpetual suffering and nobody likes that. So Steve Moxon, thank you for your debut on the Mindset Makeovers podcast. Debut? I think so. Okay.